I'm Dr. Rachel Hollander of Hollander Holistic Health and mind body health coaching for clients with chronic pain, long COVID, chronic fatigue, and many other chronic symptoms toward recovery. And I'm excited to share with you all today Evanye Lawson. Say hi very briefly,
Hi, everybody.
Evanie.
Hello.
And she's here to tell us her recovery story from a variety of neuroplastic symptoms she had for several years or most of her life, including some various areas of chronic pain and digestive symptoms. But
Yeah.
first, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Hollander Holistic Health if you want to see more healing videos like this. So back to Evany. Evany is a psychotherapist from Georgia in the south of the United States and currently lives in Thailand, where she could afford to live and work limited hours due to her symptoms. And here it is, April of 2026. I supported Evany with mind body health coaching 5 times between late August of last year and mid December of last year, spanning a little less than 4 months. I hadn't heard from Evany for 4 more months. And then out of the blue, I got an email from her. Here are some snippets from that email. Okay. I have finally found trust in my body again, and my confidence is soaring. After 30 years of an identity rooted in restriction and control, I finally let go, and my body did too. I have never experienced this level of peace around food and my body's choices. The work we did together helped me stay with myself and allow my body to feel safe again. I've been able to eat without my stomach cramping, seizing, or feeling nauseous, sluggish, or dizzy. I can finally experience stress as just stress instead of it turning into ongoing physical symptoms. My insomnia is improving as I have learned to stay in the trust space with my body. The work we did truly supported me during a time when I felt helpless and hopeless. I am so proud of myself. So, Evany, I'm so excited to have you here to tell us your story. Tell us more.
For sure. I love that. You're reading that email back to me, and my mind automatically goes to the feeling I had when I wrote it. And so a lot of the symptoms that I had, first of all, I didn't even know they were neuroplastic. I didn't know that there was something that I could shift inside of myself that would allow my body to feel better. My journey really got started with stomach issues. I started having stomach issues geez, maybe at 22, 23. I'm 42 now. So I started early on with ulcers and had one big duodenal ulcer that the doctors gave me medication to support me in, and it didn't work. It actually made my symptoms worse. Ended up going to Chinese medicine doctor. They put me on turmeric, and then that took care of everything. And I was like, oh, perfect. I'm fine. But I always experienced stomach issues, and they would be occasional in my 20s. I think it wasn't until I was about 30, 31 is when things really started to go sideways. When I woke up one day and I remember eating food, and the food would just sit on my belly. It wouldn't go anywhere. And I was like, I don't know what happened. I at this point I had thought that I had a good relationship with food. I thought, oh, I'm eating right. Like I should be feeling fine. I had done all of these different food, I guess lifestyles is the way that I've described it, from vegan to raw vegan to paleo to keto to all of these different things. And by the time I got to be in my 30s, at the early part of it, I ended up having just large lumps that would just sit and sit and sit, like bricks just sitting at the top of my belly, and it wasn't going down. And I think that that part made me concerned. So I just kept trying harder. I kept detoxing and dieting and try every herb that I could to flush this out. I went to every naturopath. I went to all kinds of people and still ended up having IBS that I later got diagnosed with IBS after my third emergency room visit for stomach issues. And this was like my third emergency room visit. I had been to the emergency room 3 times. On the third time, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I had gastroenteritis where my entire transverse colon was fully inflamed and it was so painful I couldn't even walk. My parents had to carry me downstairs, put me in the car, and then carry me into the hospital, and then get me in a wheelchair. And all they could do was put me on a morphine drip. And the doctors were like, well, we don't know. We can't figure out what's wrong with you. So it could be IBS. You need to go to a gastroenterologist. And I didn't have the money for that. At the time, as a therapist, I was a solo practitioner. I didn't have insurance. There was no way for me to get to a gastroenterologist. So I remember it was the Obamacare plan, and I got on a large wait list with Emory, and they never called me. Emory was like, "We will have a gastroenterologist when we call you. We have so many people ahead of you." This was probably February, and they said the latest appointment, the first appointment that we have for you would be in October. And I was like, October? Like, what am I supposed to do until then? So I ended up going to another naturopath at that point, and they said, it looks like IBS. Let's treat you like you have IBS. So we started treating me like we had IBS, but it kept getting worse and it kept getting worse and it kept
And
getting
what was
worse.
that treatment? Medications? What was that
The
treatment?
treatment was it was herbs. It was diet. It was diet and herbs.
Mhm.
And for them they wanted me to be primarily vegan. They wanted to take me off of any meat that I was eating, any possible processed foods that I was eating. So I obliged because I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I had tried it, but I wasn't consistent with it. And they were like, okay, let's go back to being vegan and let's take you off of grains, and then let's take you off of nightshades, and let's take you off of this. So part of it was an elimination diet, part of it was a reconstructed diet of trying to figure out what's going to make me feel better. And I was hungry.
I
I was
bet.
hungry. I was so hungry because I was like, this isn't working. And so, fast forwarding through time, that was like probably the first half of my 30s. By the time 35, 36 got here, I just gotten used to having stomach issues. I just adapted. I lived my life this way. I forgot about it. I wasn't working hard at trying to get rid of it. I just was hoping that I didn't end back up in the ER anymore. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna hope for the best. I think about so we're still cleansing, still cleansing, still cleansing. My body still hasn't given out on me, and it wasn't until I was about 37 or 38 when I went on what felt like the last detox diet of my entire detox food lifestyle. And that detox is the thing that just my body said, okay, we're done. We don't trust you anymore. And it shut off completely. And that's when I got insomnia. I started having chronic fatigue. My stomach issues, they were already there and they just kept getting worse. Like I was getting nauseous all the time. And even when I go back to my childhood, I was always the child that would get nauseous. Every summer, my family would be like, "Oh, Evanie, we know she's gonna have headaches. She's gonna be nauseous. Something's gonna be wrong with her because something was always wrong." And when I was growing up, I restricted my diet a lot. Like maybe starting around the age of 12 and onward, I somehow decided control was better for me if I just didn't eat. And so I just didn't eat, and I would pretend to eat. I would, move food around on the plate, and act like I ate. And if people asked me, what did you eat today? I would lie and say, oh, I ate X, Y, and Z, but I really didn't eat. So I was starving myself because I felt like it was the only way to deal with the symptoms, not because I wanted to lose weight, but because I didn't like feeling heavy every time I ate food. And at that point, it already felt heavy in my body eating heavy foods. And I didn't understand that. So I think my little kid brain was just like, okay, well, just don't eat. That makes more sense. And not realizing that this was the identity forming and shaping how I related to food, how I related to my body, and how I related to just parts of myself. And I think there was a moment where we had a session and you asked me a question about how did I talk to my body back then? And it never really clicked for me or dawned on me how that conversation played a huge role in how I was having a conversation with my body now. And I remember saying to you, I think you may have asked the question, were there body parts or particular areas of your body that you were talking about or criticizing? And I was like, yep, it was my stomach. I always criticized my stomach. I was so afraid of my stomach getting big because I had seen it in my family. My parents talked about people who were overweight. I had seen it all throughout the media, and it was just unacceptable. So I wanted to make sure that my belly was small, it was thin, it was flat, and every night I would run my hand over my belly just to make sure that she was still flat. And if I ate food that day, I would judge myself because if I felt it, I would go, okay, don't eat tomorrow. Don't eat tomorrow. And that just became my natural cycle. So then we speed up until the now moment and I have stomach issues. Like I put so much hate and criticism into my belly that I didn't realize that was sitting in the background running the show this whole time, causing me stomach issue after stomach issue after stomach issue. So by the time,
And it can sound kind of woo-woo, this idea of putting emotion into a body part, but our brain is mapped for every body part. And so when we
yeah,
associate danger signals or negative emotions with a body system or body parts and fear, and then we're propagating that, it creates a neural circuit and it sends ongoing symptoms.
and it does. And and this is the thing that didn't make sense to me because I knew this information. This is the work that I did with my clients all day, every day. People would send clients to me with conversion disorder, where their anxiety would transform into a physical thing. And I was able to work with that client, but it did not click that this was my story. I just I didn't put two and two together. So
It's
when I
always
started,
harder to see these things for ourselves, especially when the symptoms are a bit different, but it's always
yes,
easier to see in other people. Like we'll see it in our spouse
really,
and the other, close people
yeah.
with us, and then we'll be like, well, that's them, but I'm different.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
been there.
exactly. I had no clue. I had no clue. And you're so right because the symptoms were different. And I thought my body was betraying me. I thought, how could my body betray me? We had worked so hard at doing all the things, taking care of it. We had a
All the
good lifestyle,
diets,
all the diets, all the detoxing, all the natural stuff. I didn't put chemicals in the house. I was like, we're good. Like we should be fine. We have an insurance plan that's going to keep us going for however long. And then my body said, "No, we don't. No, we do not." And that's when I realized, "Oh God, something is wrong and I don't know what it is." And now I have to unravel to see it. And Rachel, it didn't take me. It took me 4 years to really get that. For the first 3 years after that detox, when my body decided it was shutting down, I did not know what I was experiencing. I didn't know how to name it. I just thought I was depressed. I thought I was grieving. I had left America and moved to Thailand. So I thought, well, maybe surely it's because I'm experiencing some sort of loss. I had no clue what it was. I knew that the detox had triggered something, but I was like, surely it could have been the detox because it was a healthy detox, right? But my mind just did not click for me that anything else was sitting up underneath. And I think it might have been at the top of 2025 when I realized, oh, you're dealing with a chronic illness. This is not something that you're just going to diet away. This is not something you're going to detox away. You're not going to sleep this off. You're not going to put herbs to this and then you'll just magically be better. There's no amount of energy healing and lifestyle that will get you into this. You're going to have to do some deeper digging. And I think that's how I ended up finding you because I cannot think of the woman's name on the
Raylan
podcast.
Eagle podcast.
Raylan
Yeah.
Bagel. Yes,
Which
great
and she
podcast.
addresses mostly chronic fatigue, long COVID, but it's
Yes.
becoming more of a more generalized neuroplastic symptoms that she's
Yeah.
addressing in her podcast. But yeah, so tell us how the chronic fatigue part, it sounds like that's the part that spoke to you with her podcast.
That's the part. Yeah, that's the part because that's the part that I didn't understand I was dealing with. It didn't matter how much sleep I was getting, I still was not resting well. And I was waking up and in the middle of the night, or I was having a hard time going to sleep. And there were so many different things that I couldn't understand what was going on. So as I was down the YouTube rabbit hole, she popped up. And I was like, I don't think this is me. So I started listening to some of the people that she interviewed, and I was like, oh my goodness, I think I'm dealing with chronic fatigue. And I didn't know what this was, but it wasn't until your video popped up that you started talking about the neuroplastic symptoms. And it made so much sense to me. And I was like, light bulbs just flew up out of my head. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. I was like, okay, I need to work with this woman. I need to find a way to work with her because she understands something that no one has yet spoken to me about. Everybody just kept telling me to keep cleansing, 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 do your enemas, do your colonics, do your whatever. And I did all of it. Oh, I look back on that moment and I go, wow, I really tried. My body was not asking for a lot of these things. So that's how I realized. And I didn't listen to a lot of Raylene's stuff. I think you were probably the second person I listened to on her channel. And she had stuff where it was just her speaking. And so I would listen in every now and again. But I think it was when I started getting fibroids. And that's
Non-cancerous growths in your uterus. Yeah, go
yes.
on.
2024 was when I, in the middle of the night, I just started bleeding,
Hmm.
vaginal bleeding. And I didn't know what it was. I was like, well, I'm not on my cycle and I should be ovulating because I keep a track of my cycle. So I was like, to Google, I was like, do people bleed? And when they're ovulating? And Google was like, sometimes, but no, not really. So I said, oh, okay. And I'm all the way out in Thailand with no family. So I said, oh, okay. I'm not going to freak out. Let me just go schedule a doctor's appointment. And then within 5 seconds, I have an identical twin sister. She calls me on the phone and she's like, I don't know. I just get something's wrong with you. I was like, what made you think that? I said, well, it's funny that you said that because I just started bleeding out of nowhere. And she said, you need to go get checked. I was like, well, I'm going to get checked. So get to the hospital that Saturday. I was still bleeding by then. So I had been bleeding for 4 days. They do a pap smear, they do a vaginal ultrasound. And she said, oh, yeah, yeah, you have fibroids. And her only recommendation was that I got a hysterectomy, which is usually the most recommended procedure for people this way. And I was like, I don't want a hysterectomy. And she's like, well, you're 40, you're probably going to enter perimenopause anyway. If you don't plan to have kids, you might as well get a hysterectomy. And I was like, no, actually, I don't want to go through menopause early. I want to fix this problem. So I went home and I was in my head and I felt defeated. She gave me pills to stop the bleeding, but I didn't take the pills. I was like, well, my body will just stop. And it did. It literally stopped the next day. So I'm glad I did not take the pills. So now I was left with what do I do? I don't know. And up until this point, I had this big bulging ball like coming out, protruding from my womb and my belly. So I thought it was bowel obstruction. I was like, because I've had gut issues. So for me, I was like, oh, maybe my colon is impacted. No, my colon was not impacted. Obviously. The reason I thought that was because these fibroids had grown so large that they were pressing up against my rectum from the inside. And so it was making it hard to eliminate. And so I was chronically constipated. I would go days without a bowel movement, and I would probably have a bowel movement every 3 to 4 days, maybe. And if I did have a bowel movement, it was so minimal that it didn't really make a difference to anything. So I also just thought maybe because I was laying down too much, I was like, well, maybe I'm laying down too much and I'm putting all this pressure on my nerves and maybe that's what's happening. I don't move my body. There were so many thoughts that
We
had gone
always
through my
find ways to kind of understand these symptoms and justify them and explain them. Yeah.
seriously, and I had no clue that it could be fibroids. It never crossed my mind that fibroids would be this huge, and they ended up
And it's a
being
structural change, a very real
it's a
structural change
structural
in your
change.
body. So how could we even imagine that the brain and nervous system could have anything to do with that? And so maybe
Yeah.
that's not technically neuroplastic because there is a structural change, but at the same time, we got to remember that the upstream brain and nervous system. Yeah.
That part. See, that part I didn't put that together, you know. It was like I would have never considered nervous system stuff at all for this because it was such a structural change. I had shifted from, I had gained 40 pounds in 1 year. So I just blamed everything on the weight. I was like, well,
And a lot of doctors do too because they don't understand it. They'll say, "Well, you just need to
yeah,
lose weight." And that can be really discounting for people.
yes. Oh, and it still is. I mean, I still hear it, and I'm like, okay, I'm inflamed, you guys. I know, but I'm not like super obese to the point where I am at a danger to myself. So it was questionable. It wasn't until then that I called my partner right after I got this diagnosis, and I was like, I don't want help. Don't help me. I don't want you to figure this out. And he was like, you called the wrong person. I'm going to figure this out. And I was like, please don't. I was so mad at him. But then like within 10 minutes, he calls me back and he says, I don't know if this is something for you, but I just found a procedure called uterine fibroid embolization. And there is a doctor. I want you to just listen to the video. I watched the video. Turns out this doctor is in Atlanta, Georgia, and he didn't even know that. I Google it and it's and he does this procedure. I call his clinic the next day. They said I could have a consultation. I explained to them my symptoms. They're saying, "Yeah, you would qualify for this surgery in UFE." And I flew home and had to have the surgery because it was going to cost the same here that it was going to cost in America. So I was like, I'll go home so my family can take care of me. And that procedure was beautiful and wonderful. And it was very supportive, but then my womb still had to do a lot of healing. I still dealt with pain. I still dealt with just the remnants of having to birth these fibroids because they don't cut them out of you. They just put a little clotter inside of you to clot the blood supply so that the fibroids stop growing and that they just supposed to shrivel up, shrink up, and die, and then they just flush out of you.
Sounds lovely, right?
Oh, lovely. I was like, oh, yay, 2 years of flushing out. Finally, I've stopped flushing out. But it was one thing after another. So when we started doing our work together, still had this the biggest massive fibroid inside of me. There was a moment where we talked about anger and my unexpressed anger and how my history with expressing anger was not that great. I mean, I didn't my whole life I didn't know what anger was. I didn't know what anger was until I was in my 30s. For me, I never experienced it in a way that I understood it because anxiety always converted to anxiety for me. And there's a lot inside of my upbringing that has a lot to do with why I didn't experience anger, but I had to unravel it and figure it out. And I remember going on a quest at 34 and was like, okay, this year I'm going to experience anger. I'm going to go out, I'm going to purposely seek feeling angry.
So yeah, at a younger age, you were already kind of thinking about that, this idea of
Yeah.
processing anger.
For
Yeah.
sure. Well, and it was so interesting because I was in a room full of therapists and we were talking about mind body stuff and the therapist went around and asked everybody, what is your relationship to anger? And I'm listening to everybody's response and they all had these important, powerful stories in relationship to anger. And I was the last person to speak. And I looked at her and I said, I don't think I know what anger feels like for me. And I felt embarrassed because I was a therapist who didn't know how to feel anger. So I was like, oh, this is problematic. Now we have to go on a journey to figure out how to feel anger. And it's been an ongoing journey. And still now I can catch it faster now, but I think that's largely due to our work together because when we were doing our work together, you were asking, I don't know, it was in the way that you were asking the questions, in the way that you gave me homework assignment to deeply explore this unexpressed anger and where I might be angry at. And so I started just every time I felt it, I would just let it out, let it out, literally let it out, try to sit with it, try to be with my inner child about it. And I remember one day my partner was giving me a belly massage, and we would always be gentle over the fibroid because belly massages or any massage would hurt me because of the pressure. And I was sitting there and we were pressing up against this thing, and I was like, wait a minute, it's not there. I said, what happened to it? And he's like, no, 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 no. So we're pressing, we're pressing, we're pressing. He's like, how does it feel if I touch here? How does it feel if I touch there? And I was like, I don't feel anything. And we're screaming at the top of our lungs in eureka because this fibroid had finally dissipated. And it was because for I think it was a homework assignment you had given me, and it was for that whole week. Every day I just went inside and expressed this anger, 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 and then woke up one day and this big old fibroid was be gone. And then my womb issues were like, oh, okay, I don't have any more pain. I haven't had pain. I haven't had to hold my womb. I haven't had to brace myself on impact. I haven't had to worry that somebody's gonna brush up against me wrong and then hit me in a way that made me feel like, ouch. I didn't have to worry about anything. And it's so perfect to not have these fibroids inside my system and to also have a better relationship with anger. That takes me to the fatigue and the stress. I would say my fatigue is still ongoing. I think the biggest part of my fatigue is I'm trying to deal with the anger around having to work. I don't like working.
Who does?
So much. And I want to change it and I want to pivot. And there's so many different things I want to do with it because I can feel that listening to people's stories all day has caused a lot of drain on me. My body
A
is
lot to
tired.
absorb people's stories. Yeah. Especially if, if you're a psychotherapist, you're probably someone who's very empathic and you really
Mhm.
absorb those emotions and feel like you need to somehow fix it, would you
Yeah.
say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes I feel with clients that there's a desire for them to have a solution. And so for me, I have to be on. I have to be on for however many hours to be on and have my body engaged and have my mind engaged and to supply resources and to supply solutions and to help process and to help ask questions that my body was has been so tired that she's like, we don't want to prioritize holding someone else. We just want to hold ourselves. And so there's been a consistent level of frustration with that and going, okay, well, how do I pivot? What does it look like? And how do I still work with my clients and still give them the best care when I don't feel well myself? And I can't just make the session about me. It has to be about them. So there's a huge chunk of my day where I'm just masking
Hmm.
to the point where it can feel self-abandoning because my body is just like, here we go again. Another day where you have to just swallow what you feel and put it on
Swallow, key word. So we use these
swallow.
words that have metaphorical meaning and
Sometimes I would swallow and food would feel like it wasn't going
uh,
down. Uh-huh.
uh-huh. So it's a great opportunity when we find ourselves using these metaphors to ask, what does that actually mean for me?
Good question. What does it actually mean for me? It means so many things. Okay? I'm swallowing other people's pains. I'm swallowing other people's anger. I'm swallowing my desire to want to get up but can't do anything about it. I'm swallowing not being able to eat my breakfast because I have to work first thing in the morning because of my time zone difference. And
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah,
hungry
let me
and
just say, so right now we started at 7 a.m. for me and what was it, 8 p.m. for you?
yeah, it was 9 p.m.
Oh, 9 p.m. Thank you,
Yeah.
by the way. But yeah, it could be the opposite where it's really early morning for you in Thailand
Yeah,
and fairly late in, say, the US. Yeah,
for my
that's
clients. Yeah.
that's interesting.
It's it's a very interesting schedule. So it's been a question of, well, is this the right time zone for me? Is this the right place for me? So there's a lot of questions involved, which I think add weight to why the fatigue is still there. But I'm still with my body. And that to me feels really good because I'm not judging it like I was before. And the work that we've done together really played a role in it because I did not know that self-trust was the thing that had been broken. I had been trying to find ways externally to fix the problem. And I don't know if you said it, it might have just been the way that you said it, but it was it was this understanding that in order for your body to find its own healing, it's gonna have to trust you, to some degree. And I was like, oh, and I kept telling people, I was like, I'm missing something because I'm not getting it. I'm not getting better. I'm missing something. And I could not figure it out. And it wasn't until you said that the light bulbs went off. I was like, oh, I'm not listening to her. I'm not even listening to myself. I am pushing, pushing, pushing against what my body is actually asking for and what it wants and what it needs and wants me to supply for it. And that's when things really pivoted because it gave me a new perspective that I was not looking at to handle what I was dealing with. And I totally started trusting myself. And I started trusting myself long enough for my nervous system to start thawing out because she was frozen. More pleasure came back online for me. More thoughts, creative thoughts came back online for me. My more ability to move towards connecting with other people came back online with me. There were so many things that came back online for me that I thought were just dead because they were not who I used to be, did not exist anymore. And I just was like, okay, she's gone. I have to figure it out. But she is not, I am not happy. I am not happy. I do not like this. And I was constantly criticizing myself over and over again. Every problem was so monumental inside of me that caused more stress. Just me telling myself how much I hated myself, how much I just could not accept the reality of where I was. All of that was causing the biggest stress. So I would get messages from people going, "Oh, be more compassionate, have more gratitude." And I'm like,
What does that even mean?
"Yeah,
How is that going to help?
how is that going to help me?" And I was like, I mean, because it had not helped up until then. So I was like, this is not going to work. And I didn't get it because I've had clients in the past who would say stuff like this. And I would be like, well, let's just practice gratitude. No, what they really needed and before gratitude was the practice of trusting themselves. And so that was more of a day-to-day listening. What is it that you want? Okay, how can I give it to you? Just treating myself like I'm
What
this
are
little
my
toddler.
needs? What do I
Yes,
need? Yeah, instead of
what do
just all the
I
giving to your clients or your
need?
partner.
Absolutely. Like in prioritizing so many people, so many experiences. And I think that I didn't realize I was doing way more than I thought I was doing. I was absolutely over functioning more than what my body could handle. And I think that that part became the aha moment for me where I said, all right, Ebony, we need to have a little bit more boundaries because we are taking in too much from other people. We're putting ourselves in spaces to be this placeholder. I got an understanding that for myself, there was a true definition of being overly empathetic. I was too overly understanding, too overly empathetic. So everything was okay. I was too receiving, too open. And my body was like, girl, boundaries. Stop. You do not have to understand this person. Or you can understand, but you don't have to fully empathize.
You
You
don't have
can
to take it on.
you don't have to take it on. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
the word. You don't have to
You
take it
can be
on.
there and witness it and be present and give
Yeah.
responses, but you don't have to take it all in. Yeah.
Take it all. And I didn't even realize I was taking it in. I just didn't click for me. My body, I was like, yeah, this is what I do. I'm good. I'm a great listener. Let's do it. But it never clicked that my body was also bracing every time I was listening to someone speak, or I was holding in my belly like tension in my
Because
womb,
maybe
or
your body didn't want to take it all in.
because my body didn't want to
Yeah.
take it all in. And I didn't know what the difference was. Now I can tell a little bit more what the difference is, but it wasn't until I started really paying attention. And so I think it was the end of January. I was at my wits end. I was like, I don't trust myself with food. I don't trust myself with food. I've done every food diet trend out there, and now I'm just eating whatever. And I judged myself for it royally. And my partner and I were getting dinner, and I said, well, I want fried chicken and I want French fries. And he was like, is that the right choice? And I was like, I don't care if it's the right choice. And he's like, okay, well, eat some of my salad. Here, take some of the salad. And I was like, I don't want your salad. And so I have this massive temper tantrum at the dinner table, and I threw the food on the floor. He's so lovely and wonderful. He's just laughing and he's looking at me and he's like, you're finished? You ready to be finished with that? I was like, no, and another thing, throwing more
So
food
you
on the
were
floor.
letting out your anger. Maybe
I
not
was
in the way that
letting
I usually suggest, where it's safe and private and controlled, but you let it out and it sounds like this was having some kind of effect eventually. Yeah, go on.
Yes. I was letting out my anger, and that's why he was laughing because he was like, "This is you letting out your anger. Good for you." I was like, "I'm mad because I want to be out of this cycle. I don't want to be in this ongoing hard relationship with my body. I'm so tired of it." There's these mason jars that I had on the balcony. I threw them in the yard, hoping that they would crash, and they didn't. It was very unsatisfying. I was so unsatisfied. And so we're cleaning up, and I'm just laying in the bed and I was like, I can't do this. I said, if 2027 gets here, I don't think I'm going to be here. I was like, this is the last year for me. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to do this. I've been doing this for far too long. I can't keep doing this. And he said to me, he's like, it's really hard to be with somebody who wants to self-abandon. At what point do you stop abandoning yourself? And I was like, because I don't trust myself. And therefore, I'm going to keep abandoning myself because I don't trust myself. That conversation, I woke up the next day and I felt great. I was like, oh, okay, wonderful. And it was like light bulbs, just whatever that anger was propelled me into how I got to write that email to you because my body was just like, okay, she said she's done, so let's be done. And I started eating what my body was asking for. I didn't judge it anymore. I can't even explain it. It was just like okay, she's done. I didn't have any prep for it. It was just eat this food the way that you want to eat the food. Eat how you want to eat. Eat it in balance. Eat it in right order, whatever feels good for you. There was a moment in one of our sessions where you had said to me, yeah, you should be able to eat what you want. I was like, I've never been able to eat what I want. I can't even imagine what that even means. You mean I can eat what I want? I even had a Thai doctor say the same thing to me out here. He was like, "Yeah, you should be able to eat whatever you want. Bison, beef, blah 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 blah. You can eat whatever." He's like, "But you should stay away from too many vegetables and too many fruits." I was like, "I don't know. I don't." So that's why I didn't listen to him. I was like, "Okay, I don't know. That sounds very unhealthy." So I just didn't think about it. But then my body understood after years of all the inputs that I had. She just organized it beautifully. And I started eating with ease. I stopped caring about food. I stopped controlling how I related to food throughout the day because every day all I did was think about food. It was like noise in the
And that's
background.
fear, control the fear, it which just propagates the problem.
It was just fear, so much of it, because I was so afraid that food would kill me. And I remember maybe towards the middle of February, I was laying in the bed and I was talking to my inner child and I said, "How are you feeling?" And she was like, "I really like this. It feels really good." And I remember feeling this joy just surge over me. That's when I realized, oh my gosh, ding, ding, ding. You've been at this for 30 years. At what point did I stop trusting that I could take care of myself? And it was way back to that 11-year-old girl, that 12-year-old girl who thought she had to restrict herself. And I built a life of restriction. I gravitated towards it like detoxes, diets, don't eat this, don't do that, but do this. And that felt like wellness. It felt like safety. It felt like home. And once that clicked for me, I said, oh, this is the identity that I've outgrown. This is the one that got me to where I am right now. This is the one that made it so. I mean, there's a ton of identities inside of it, but this one was a really big one. And I don't think I would have ever truly gotten to that had I not gone through our work together to unravel certain pieces that would help me finally connect the dots. And once I did that, I was like, okay, I've been just afraid for 30 plus years here. I've been afraid my whole life. And no wonder my body decided to give up. And
Yeah,
yeah,
what about childhood do you
yeah.
think kind of primed your brain and nervous system to
Ooh,
lead you to these types of symptoms later on? And I always go back to childhood and other life experiences, but it's not with like a blame of any of a parent or any one person. It's with an understanding to see why have I become this way and how can I learn from it and to
for
gain more
sure.
self-compassion and then compassion for those others in your
Yeah,
life.
absolutely. I mean, I think my childhood, I always tell people, my parents loved hard, but they loved with control too. So they loved from a space of control, thinking that the control was protection. I don't recall as a child having access to my own thoughts and my own autonomy. That did not click on for me until I was 19. And I was like, oh, I'm an adult. Huh, hello. So I didn't have the typical childhood rebellion. None of that clicked because I just did whatever my parents told me to do. If they said bark, I'm a bark. You know, if they said jump, I will jump. I had no autonomy or
Which meant you
ego.
weren't being true to yourself. It's such a common
Exactly.
theme with these symptoms.
Lack of autonomy for sure. And just also seeing my parents be people who also led in this kind of black and white thinking. You know, it's either one way or the other way. You know, you either do this or you don't. Or if this is happening, then this is the consequence. Like that was just reinforced my whole life. Going to school and reinforced that too. I wanted to be the good girl. I wanted to make the good grades. You know, I got celebrated for being good.
Mhm.
I was prioritized for being good. Oh, Ebony, she's a good girl. You know, I was good at everything. And it created a perfectionism inside of me. So I always needed to get it right. I still need to get it right. Oh, I'm still trying to work with that one. But like that part still exists to some degree, but it was there all along. And I learned how to be that person. I learned that success was based on the external outcome. And I didn't learn anything about success being anything related to my relationship with myself. It was just do right. That's it. Just do right. And you know, even just when I go back, my parents would always say, um, you know, when you're out in public, you represent us, you know, so you got to look your part, dress the right appropriately, act appropriately. And I knew what that meant. That meant don't embarrass them in public, be good girl. Follow the rules, don't say anything, only speak when you're spoken to. Children are in their place. These are the adults. You do not question authorities. Saw what happened when you questioned authority. There were consequences. You know, you would get in trouble. A lot of that carried over into my adult years and being a high achiever, striving to be good, to be seen as some successor. And that was actually one of the reasons I left America. I told a friend, I said, I just want to live a mediocre life. I'm tired of striving. That was actually the most freeing phrase to come out of my mouth because it was trying to prime me for what I now know that I don't think I knew along the journey. It wasn't about mediocre or mediocrity. It was about just not trying to be good for everyone and everybody. And it was okay to just be myself. And if myself was messy, cool. Let it be messy. If people got angry, great. If they're disappointed in me, okay, fine.
And you're still very in touch with your family, even though you live so far away. You communicate
Yeah.
regularly. And so how has the change in your symptoms and this life transformation, how has it changed your family, your relationships with your family, with your partner, and others?
So there used to be an internal driver that no one really saw, like my family or my partner or anybody saw. If I was asked a question, I had to say yes. Even if I didn't feel good, okay, get on this phone call. You're gonna have to talk to them because you're far away, Ebony. You gotta pick up the phone and you have to call them. That internal voice of needing to have to is not there.
Maybe you
They
do
will be,
what comes more naturally.
thank you.
It's
Yes,
more
do
intuitive, more authentic, would you
authentic.
say?
Yeah, it's more authentic. It's more
Yeah.
authentic. I love talking to my family. It's the highlight in my weeks and my days. But it was the have to that I wanted to let go of and feel into what was truly real for me. And same with my partner, same with friends, same with anybody. I didn't want to feel like I had to be on just like I had to be for work. So I think that that part has been 10 times better for me. 10 times
Mhm.
better. I really, really appreciate that piece because I don't feel this pressure to have to perform or to be on stage to some degree.
Yeah, we already do it to a significant degree with work, with clients, where we're
Yeah,
performing, and I like to,
yeah,
I have to say, I feel a lot more authentic now after understanding
yeah.
the mind body model because I'm more authentic in general. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, we don't want to have to perform with that as well as in our personal life. You want to feel authentic and natural as much as
Yeah.
possible.
as
Yeah.
much as possible.
So what
So
does
yeah,
the future look like for you, Ebony? And maybe there's not a particular answer, but sometimes it just opens up avenues for people.
yeah. Well, decided that it's less about trying to get past a symptom and it's more about being with the reality of where I am and adjusting to that in a way that can support me, so that I'm not consistently trying to chase healing.
More present in the moment
Thank
because it's
you.
not about this
Yeah.
future of have to fix this, have to get better.
Yeah, exactly. It's about being present in the moment. So much of these neuroplastic symptoms, the grief was from the loss of who I used to be and the functioning that I used to have to live in a body that has all of this, but yet still can't go the distance. And so the future looks like dreaming. The future looks like dreaming and feeling okay to dream and knowing that even if my body is only able to give me access to certain parts and there might be some disabled parts, that's okay. Like I'm still allowed to dream further than where I have been, still allowed to keep moving forward in my business, pivoting from what I do for work and doing more teaching, more speaking, more writing books, things of that nature, passing my knowledge on. And just letting myself be more relaxed with my choices, relaxed in my body, relaxed in my mind. That is the future. That is absolutely
That
the
is
goal.
beautiful, Ebony. So, yeah, I'm so glad to have your story told. Thank you
Thank
so much. And is there anything else that you want to share before we conclude?
Thank you for having this work be something that you offer to people. And thank you for being so vocal and open about it and sharing it across the internet, because there would have been no other way for me to have found you and to have found that there was something about me unlearning my pain. Oh, one thing I forgot to say about the biggest thing, the food, eating the food. I used to have upper belly bloat, and that doesn't happen. My body
Y-
is like,
And maybe you
we
just even kind of forgot that some things don't happen anymore. And that's the best thing. Like you're
yes,
not thinking about the
thinking
food
about
and the symptoms so much. And I know
yeah,
there's maybe some ongoing little aches or pains and difficulty sleeping
yeah,
here and there. And we're all works in progress. And so when we call this a recovery story, recovery is lifelong, but it
yes.
sounds like your life is pretty transformed, and that's so amazing. So,
Thank you so much.
is
Thank
there
you.
anything you want to say about your psychotherapy practice?
So, a lot of the work that I do, I primarily work with women in reinvention, meeting women in the between space of being somewhere where they are, they don't like it, and they're trying to get to the next space. And so much of that is around nervous system, nervous system healing, somatic healing, relationships. These are the places that a lot of my work lives. And so that's primarily what I do. But that's been my whole life. I've always been in between new identities onto the next. It's like the pathway for it. And being able to guide other women inside of that has been a beautiful journey for me. And it's something that I still do. And it's something that I still love and am passionate about. So, yeah.
If someone wants to see you as a client, how would they contact you?
If you go to my website, it's called theselflovecenter.com. And
Okay.
that's how you can get in touch with me. You can sign up for a free consultation and decide and we can have a conversation to see if I can be the person who best supports whatever it is that you're going through.
Lovely. Again, I'm Dr. Rachel Hollander, and I'm with Hollander Holistic Health. It's a fully virtual health coaching practice for mind body symptoms or neuroplastic symptoms. I'm available as well for one on one appointments, health coaching in groups, book clubs, and self directed courses. And you can go to www.hollanderholistichealth.com to learn more. And there's a lot of free learning resources. Again, if you liked this video, please like it and please subscribe so that you can get more videos like this. So, Ebony, again, I'm so thankful to have you here and I loved hearing your story. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Absolutely. Thank you.